Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. It's a little after 6, and as always, we'll start it with questions. Do we have any questions? Anyone have any questions other than what we discussed yesterday? And then we'll see if we have any questions for Matthew. Okay. Any questions from Matthew chapter 4? Pastor was talking yesterday about the temptations that Jesus went through.
Pastor, you just offered to do a recap. Would you do the recap from yesterday?
Sure. Yesterday, when we started, it started off with us talking about Alkebulan, the original name of Africa, what it meant, and then when we talked about the meaning of it, we in pretty good detail talked about how it relates to us today and the spiritual meaning of it, because it means mother of humankind, and it also means Garden of Eden. And then after we discussed that, we were talking about the temptations that appears in Matthew 4, beginning with that first verse after Jesus was baptized by John, which ends in the third chapter. And then it picks up in the fourth chapter with Jesus being led into the wilderness. And what we came to understand about that is when it talked about him being led into the wilderness to face the tempter, it actually was him being led into the wisdom to confront himself, meaning that to see the difference between his material outlook and his material, the things that he embraced materially, as opposed to the spiritual things. And in looking at that, we saw that that fasting really talks about Jesus putting forth a tremendous effort to push through his flesh, meaning push through all of the material concepts that he had been taught about religion no differently than us. And understanding that, we saw also that the word tempter comes from a word that means to forget. And what we concluded about that is the material thoughts that we have, or the religious doctrines that we've been taught, causes us to forget who we really are. And the more that there is an overlay emanating from religious doctrines, the more forgetful we are about who we are. And during this time, or on the mountain, or within himself, Jesus was actually struggling with rising above what he had known, had been taught all his life, and what he knew he was supposed to do, and to embrace with the totality who he is. And we found out also that when he talked about the angels having charge over him, angels having charge over him, what was really said there is that since you say that you are the Son of God, you have everything, control of everything anyway. So cast yourself down, because you're protected. You will not hurt yourself. No damage will come to you. We understood that to mean that since you say that you're the Son of God, since you say that you're God, now you can do anything you want to, because no damage can come to you because of who you are. And then we understood that that is not at all what was being said there. What was being said was the logic of your mind can justify anything that you want to do. And Jesus said that my life is not centered around logic and the daily and bodily need, my daily and bodily needs. So what he's actually saying is, regardless of who I am, knowing that I am Elohim, it doesn't mean that that I use it for the purpose of bringing material things to me. It is not for my daily and bodily needs. It is actually for the nourishment of my soul and the nourishment of the souls of others. So there were a lot of questions, of course, in regards to that, but that's pretty much what we talked about. If there are questions or other additions to that, please bring them. Thank you.
I have a question. So, was this an internal conversation that Jesus was having with itself,
Yes.
himself?
Yes. It was an internal conversation. The internal conversation that we are seeing here was not an internal conversation for Jesus only. These writings are speaking to us. As a matter of fact, what I see in this is we have, for the most part, embraced that we are Elohim. And understanding the meanings of these temptations helps us to see how we function as Elohim. We have to abandon our selfish desires, our selfish ways, and embrace the reality that by knowing who we are obligated to be servants to humanity and not just for ourselves. Does that help you?
It does, because I can relate to what the thoughts that Jesus was having that come to them. Because again, like you said, we all have internal conversations. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The other part of that to this is we all have internal conversations. However, this one is speaking to when you get to the place where you begin to realize who you are, your internal conversations at that point begin to change. In other words, your internal conversation at that point moves beyond just who you are and begins to teach you how to function and shows you all the things that you need to come face to face with and bring to a resolution in order for you to be a servant to humanity as opposed to be a servant to yourself.
That makes sense, because I think I remember I asked, how do we function as Elohim? Now that we know, how do we function? And now, is that what you're telling me now?
Yes, I am saying yes. That the beginning of that functionality is recognizing that we haven't arrived. Recognize the burden of materialism that we carry. Recognizing the religious doctrines that has kept us in bondage for years. It is at that point that we begin to learn how to function. And when we begin to look at the other temptations, and when we begin to look at other aspects of the sayings of Jesus, we will begin to see more clearly that functionality. Knowing the light, the light or embracing the light that emanates from our hearts will put us on the right, will lead us in the right direction. Meaning that when we begin to embrace the enlightenment that emanates from our soul, we will be guided in the right direction, and that will show us what we need to hold on to in terms of holding on to the spiritual essence of our being and letting go of the religious polity that we have been guided by up to this point. And that what I just said is, know the truth, and the truth will make you free. I'm done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Hey everybody, this is Audrey. Yesterday we talked about a little bit about melanin, and I forget exactly what we were talking about melanin. Can you remind me? But anyway, my question is, and I was thinking about this yesterday after we got off. When we talked about seeing and hearing, and we talked about somehow that was related to melanin in some kind of way. But anyway, so does it mean that people who have more melanin, because we can potentially have the ability to see and hear a little more readily, but also melanin absorbs sound. So do we then have the potential of, and I know, and I'm thinking this is true in terms of like church doctrine and all kinds of stuff that is labeled Christianity. Do we tend to have more of an affinity to absorb or hear those things, and it gets kind of stuck with us because of the melanin? Is that a potential problem with people who have more melanin? And for us who also recognize that we are Elohim, do we then have to be that much more careful in terms of what we hear with our spiritual ear and what we see with our spiritual eye? Do you understand what I'm saying, asking?
I do. Is there anyone would like to address that before I speak? Yes, the more melanin that exists, the easier it is for you to hear with the spiritual ear and to embrace what you are hearing. The melanin does absorb vibration. It absorbs sound. It also absorbs light, meaning it absorbs enlightenment, the spiritual essence of what's in spiritual consciousness as well as earth consciousness. So we do have to be cautious about embracing what we hear or embracing what we experience. We have to be cautious in that regard, and that is the reason it is imperative for us to have this material or this religious breakthrough so that we can listen with our soul as opposed to listening with our mind. The less melanin that exists, the more difficult it is to wrap your mind around being spiritual or even desiring to be spiritual. The less melanin, the more affinity one has for the material world. And it is incumbent upon those who has the large amounts of melanin to bring humanity to a place of understanding that it is spiritual as well. And in doing, how does that work? When we are talking about what the scriptures or the holy books really are saying, based upon the linguistic structure of the Aramaic and Hebrew that we are using, what we are actually doing is increasing the vibration of the melanin that exists there. And the more you embrace that, it does not necessarily increase the amount of melanin, because because it's not about quantity. It's about the quality of your desire for spirituality. Was I hearing you right with your question, Audrey?
Yeah, exactly. And it can also lead us down the opposite path too, couldn't it?
It can. As a matter of fact, it has. It can lead us down the opposite path because melanin sustains life, supports life, but melanin does not control your life. You make the decisions about your life. Even with us on this spiritual journey, we had to make decisions as to whether or not we wanted to travel this journey or whether or not we were going to maintain the beliefs that we had from our childhood. And even now, we are still wrestling with that, even though we made a choice to understand things spiritually. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
But once you make that turn, to study truth, wouldn't the melanin actually aid you? Wouldn't it further enhance your energy or your effort?
Yes, it would. Yes, because it's absorbing the vibration of enlightenment. It's absorbing the rhythm of the universe. It will. However, if you decide that this is too far out for you, and this is not what the Bible says because of the mistranslations in it, then it will lead you down another pathway. But that other pathway ultimately leads you to a place where you're more concerned about you and yours as opposed to humanity itself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. And I was also thinking about once you do make the choice, it's really essential that you sort of guard your heart, because Jesus had these thoughts after he did his fasting, after he came to some realizations. So he still had these thoughts. So yes, we have to sort of guard our own hearts in terms of in terms of our thoughts, because we can go down that opposite path.
Absolutely, and I'll give you an example. When Jesus was baptized, John virtually said before he baptized Jesus is that our water baptism is over once Jesus is baptized. Because John said, I baptize with water, one will come who baptize you with the Spirit. And from that point forward, baptism was spiritual. And if we are lending ourselves to embracing water baptism being the thing that delivers us from all of our entanglements, then what we have done with the light is put it on the bushel basket because it does not benefit us or anyone else. Now, when we understand that water baptism is a doctrinal thing that is being pushed by religious leadership and not the scriptures. And when we realize that, it is then that we begin to push through all of the religious beliefs that we had and began to see the reality of what's spiritual. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any questions about that?
I have a question. So it doesn't matter if melanin is spiritual, and it is. It's not about what, and I'm gonna say color you are. Am I correct on that?
Let me hear the rest of your question.
Say one more time.
Let me hear the rest of your question.
No, I was just saying that's my question. So when we talk about melanin, it's not about the color of your skin. It's about you. It is?
Yes.
If it's and it's spiritual?
Yes.
Help me understand.
Melanin is not about racism, but it is about the color of your skin. The more melanin you have, the darker you are. So that's skin color. But that's not racism. It's no different than if let's just say that all the life on the earth is comes from melanin. So if all the life on the earth comes from melanin, then the more melanin you have, the more opportunity you have to have an affinity for the spiritual life or for life itself. Melanin is a physical manifestation of spiritual life itself, and it does play a major role in your skin color. It plays a major role in your hair type. It plays a major role in the way you see, physically see. It plays a major role in what color the trees are and how tall they get. It plays a major role in everything. And the largest source of melanin in humans is the African. So it has nothing to do with racism. And skin color and racism are two different things.
I can see that now, but I'm like, it was hard for me to see why would, if we're an extension of, we are Elohim, and I don't know how to form my question.
Well, let me help you. Yesterday, I used the example of a black marble being melanin. If you have this huge ball of melanin, and that ball of melanin begins to project life from it, the further you get away from it, the less life you're going to have, right?
I'm with you.
When you get to the other end where it's projecting, there is not going to be as much melanin at the other end as it is where it started, is it?
No.
So if you take people and put them on that spectrum, what you have is the further you get away from that African womb, the less melanin you have. And what you're headed toward, I don't think we see it yet. What you're headed toward in your question is, so why is it that Europeans don't have as much melanin as we do? If Europeans had the same amount of melanin as we do, they'd be the same color. The Japanese had it, they'd be the same. The skin would be the same. What happened is ignorant men took an abundance of melanin that they were able to absorb with their eyes and demeaned it and made it something less than who they are. And they did not do that because they loved humanity. That was done in order to marginalize people who did not look like them. And that became racism. Now, prior to that, melanated people were accepted all over the world for who they are, as opposed to being castigated or cast into a role of eternal slaves who have very little positivity in their lives and has accomplished nothing other than being a slave and selling drugs. Am I helping you see, Evan?
Yeah, and the reason why I said that because there are a lot of spiritual Caucasians, and that's why I asked if it was. Well, that's why I asked the question: melanin is melanin spiritual? Because again, there are a lot of spiritual Caucasians,
How do you know?
Asian, huh?
You know that.
I just feel it that that's just me. I just feel that there are some out there that are spiritual.
I've studied Benner, studied all these guys who translate these scriptures, and none of them deal with melanin. None of them. Even though they deal with the spiritual aspects of the scriptures, the overwhelming majority of Caucasians who delve into spirituality are not spiritual. They are religious. I have not in my entire life met one religious Caucasian who is spiritual. And the truth is just the truth. And if any one of you have, please let me know, because I would like to meet them. Every one of them that I've ever met holds to what religion has taught us through Christianity or through Islam or through whatever the ism that they believe in, and their beliefs are bound to this material world, as opposed to the world of spirituality. According to everything that I've heard from religious Europeans, you're going to die and you're going to go to this geographical place called heaven, and if you don't do what we say you're supposed to do according to the scriptures, you're going to hell and you're going to burn for the rest of your life. Have you ever heard any speak differently than that?
No, but I'm just going to think about what we're talking about.
Okay.
And yeah, let me just think about that. I haven't.
That's fine.
I'm not there yet with that.
Okay. However,
Okay.
let me tell you also something else. The truth is ugly. That's why it's so hard to tell. Because
And I'm quite sure I have other questions to follow up with this, but okay. And it's just something I just need to think about. Okay, I'm done.
I think part of this conversation is something I've kind of thought about too, and kind of analyzed it. And you think about the history of the world and where we are now, and it is no coincidence. And I think everybody that logs in on these calls day after day recognizes that there's something special here. There's something unique about what we do, and in this place and time. And if you can see that, if you can see that we are supposed to be here, the universe brought us together and brought us here, then it is also not a coincidence that the Benners and the Douglas Clarks and all those people exist. I think the desire brought them into existence. And I think that all the things that it dawned on me some time ago, some years ago, that whatever we desire on this journey, we are able to find, or it finds us. And that has not been a coincidence. So those people that we discuss and talk about, I applaud their effort, but I think, I won't say but, and I think we are just as much a part of their journey as they are a part of ours. So I don't know if that helps the discussion or not, but it's something I had thought about a while back anyway.
There's no question about that. That's absolutely correct. They are a part of our journey. We are part of the journey. We, again, one of the difficult things with that is because we are so scared to tell the truth about racism until we cannot see the truth about the difference between racism and skin color, and have an issue with seeing the difference between those who teach Christianity for the purpose of enforcing racism and misogyny and all these other things. We have a problem with that. It's easy for a European to tell you what he sees the truth to be. It's easy. A European will stand in your face, I've had it done, and tell you that you are the son of Ham and you are cursed because of the color of your skin. But we have a problem when it comes to telling them you're wrong. This is not about race. This is about a manifestation of spirituality. And yes, the African has more melanin than anyone. And melanin, nothing lives without melanin. And yes, the African is the most forgiving entity on the face of the earth because of his spiritual essence. Because the African is more in touch with who it is than anybody else on the earth. We have a problem with saying that because we have been taught that we are not worthy of being who we are. We have been taught that we playing the race card simply because we are telling the truth. If you don't tell the truth, you playing the race card. And every time you play it, it's against you. You lose. At some point, we're going to have to stop trying to placate and tell the truth. The truth is not just knowing what these temptations mean. The truth is also knowing who you are. And to know who you are in this material world as well as in this spiritual world, you have to know what the truth of it is. It's just that simple. Yes, melanin is spiritual, but it's just like everything else. It is a physical manifestation of a spiritual reality, which is life itself, the source of life. It's just that simple. So I want us to get comfortable enough with who we are as a people, with who we are, whether you're European, whether you're Japanese or African. Get comfortable with who you are. Get comfortable with the truth. The largest number of people on earth who are uncomfortable with who they are African. And it's because we have been made to not only be ashamed of who we are, but we have been made to believe that we are being disrespectful if we tell the truth about who we are. So at some point, that's a truth that has to be dealt with. We cannot keep walking around it and acting like it does not exist. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes.
I think sorry, I'm losing my voice. My question is, does that go back to Christianity in terms of doctrine and a literal reading of the Bible? Is that what keeps people from, experiencing exactly who they are?
Yes, it is a result of literally reading the Bible. It is a result. And it's also a result of misreading the Bible, even with the bad translations. There is nothing said that Ham was cursed. And understanding what a curse means is foreign to those who just read the Bible literally. Those are the kinds of truths that we have to deal with. We have to come face to face with them. And it's not racist for me to say that I have more melanin than a European does. That's not racist. That's reality. What's racist?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What's racist is when you go into a chemistry class or you go into a physiology anatomy class and you don't even hear melanin mentioned. That's what's racist. Go ahead, Shel.
I believe I have quite a bit on this, and it actually just came up through in this conversation. The way that I actually see it, and don't disagree with anything that has been said, for sure, by the way. With Black people, those with darker skins, being in this earth longer, and we know for sure that the oldest human beings were absolutely Black for a very long time before you even had a Caucasian individual. Those individuals or the heritage, in a sense, of that history is automatically that which is much closer to the Creator. And therefore, even when human beings lived in a much more spiritual way and had a much more closer connection to the Creator. It is true, I guess, to address your question, Evelyn, that Black people, as Pastor Richard said, have more melanin. What that melanin then does is it makes, in a sense, spirituality a little bit more accessible, even though it's accessible to everyone. Just as a tangent to illustrate that, it is quite clear and illustrative, for example, in the world, is why Black people have known for their art so much and completely lead the world in entertainment and things like that as it relates to the arts and creativity because of that melanin. It is the pulling that from out of the spiritual world, in a sense. It is a reason why at night, when we dream, anyone, for that matter, the body secretes melanin to actually to do that. Now, in the same exact way, while Black people have more melanin and that is a little bit more accessible, and as I said before, however, the ability in terms of spirituality is accessible to everyone. Let's now, in the same way, women are typically more intuitive than men, is why the Holy Spirit was considered Sophia, considered wisdom that was feminine. Now, let's look at that and think about the same concept that we're talking about. And now think about an architect and an actual builder. In the sense of what we're talking about in terms of the melanin, et cetera, women and the older individuals, the more melanated people of the world, would more so be the architects of the world to, in terms of leading and determine what we actually create in this physical world. Now, males and definitely more Caucasian people who are more builders, who are more focused in a sense, for the most part, in the physical realm, they are more so, we more so. Pretty much everything is on a spectrum. So everyone is the same, but different to different quantities in a qualitative way. Or the architects. So what more so happened what Pastor Richard is talking about is essentially you had the architects who were more so the builders who stopped using I crossed myself up. The builders kept on building and being interested in the building without using architects, and pretty much just fired architects who wanted nothing to do with them and told them they don't know what they're talking about, et cetera. Only being able or interested in recklessly creating this physical world without any discernment or direction whatsoever. In terms of belittling and trying to rob Black people, the melanated people, rob intuitive women, et cetera, it was more so because they did not value that, and at the same time wanted to take charge and take lead, and didn't want to take direction at all, and was completely intimidated by spirituality, by women, by melanin, which is why there's always been such an attack on Black people and such an attack on women because of that fear, and actually intuitively knowing that they are powerful, and in a sense of just fighting against them. And for something that you view as a great threat, you have to put up a big fight against, because you think it is necessary in order to keep that threat at bay. Please ask me any questions, because all of that just came out. And yes, thoughts or questions, please.
Well, I want to respond to what you said. Okay, I get it. I get it now. And that's why I'm grateful to have the teachers that we have to help us understand. And I know that if we talk about things, so that's how you get clarity. So, okay, I can see that now. But I don't want to give anybody the impression that in the past, let me just say this to you. I didn't want you to say, did I say something thinking about racism or something? Or are you just telling me what the difference was?
No, you did not say anything about racism. However, the question that you raised was going in that direction. And we have never talked about melanin the way we are talking about it now.
Okay.
We haven't.
Yeah.
So we're afraid that we may say something that will offend people who are racist.
You definitely hit that on the head, because I sat here not knowing how to start talking for a while.
Okay.
And saying that, because, and it's funny because this wouldn't necessarily be the same grace that has been historically afforded to us. With what I'm saying and what I'm trying to make extremely important, we're absolutely not trying to belittle anyone. We're just saying that in terms of a team or an organization, there are certain roles. And we're not even saying that Black people's roles are more important. We're saying that just like a team, there's certain aspect of the team that has been diminished and tried to discard. So, of course, that would just create a whole bunch of chaos and dysfunction. We talk about balance all the time, and balance doesn't necessarily mean that everything is completely equal. It means that it is the proper, in a sense, measures of a particular thing to actually work. And as adjustments are made and as things change, those even those quantities change. So yes, we're not at all diminishing anyone. We're saying yes, there are supposed to be people that are focused on, in a sense, being more so builders. However, you absolutely need the architects as well, because we just had a whole bunch of architects and had no builders whatsoever. In a sense, you could think that, okay, nothing would be built either. So that's a very important point. No, at all, not at all, Evelyn, did we think at all that you yourself were being racist, or even trying to allude to anything racist. I'm finished.
I'm glad we have the platform where we can ask questions, and thank you all. I'm done.
speaking of that, of questions, one thing that I did think about is how in the church we're told not to question anything whatsoever, even ourselves, just to take it. And that's the very thing that Jesus had to go through and got him to that point, was asking questions and to gain understanding for himself. The paradox, the irony. I'm done.
Not only that, not only did he asked questions of them to make them think and to make them realize certain things, even if they weren't asking questions. He asked questions of them.
I have a question just listening to this discussion. And I'm listening to what Sheldon said, and I'm going to say the same thing a little differently, though, just to help with my question. I'm looking at, he used architects and builders, and I'm just going to call them all creators. So everybody, whether they recognize that they're a creator or not, when we have thoughts, we're creating something. We create our own worlds. So, and you talk about the ebb and flow, everybody, how this thing works together. Wouldn't it, though, the one who understands spiritually how to create and understand the importance of rest and how to reflect on his creation and how to send energy, wouldn't that trump everybody else's creation once that is understood?
Ask your question again, Ron. I didn't quite understand.
Yeah.
Okay, you have the world out there and everybody's creating. You have a group that may be selfishly doing what they do, and in their selfishness, their part of their greed is diminishing everyone else. But if someone comes along and learns how to create constructively, meaning in a way for mankind, and he understands that creation is not for selfishness or destruction, and he understands what rest means, that I create from that place of that understanding of who I am, internally understand, and the rest is I reflect on what I've learned and who I am and the enlightenment that I am. Because I do those reflections and I send that energy out, wouldn't that trump everything else that goes on that is meant for destruction?
Yes, I believe it will.
Yes, Ron, I believe so as well. The thing is this thing that we're talking about, not only does it happen on a macro scale in terms of all of us, but it also happens internally as well. And the other thing that I was thinking about earlier that is tied to this as well is, as one, I guess, goes down this journey and realizes these things, and they open up and understand more and more who they are, automatically the other thing that will take place is that they will automatically, in a sense, start making decisions for the world and all of mankind, and not just themselves, because their identity of self and who they are will automatically become that of, as the scriptures say, the word, etc., and them being something more than just an individual. So they can still do things and understand that they are both, I forget how Pastor used to say it, both in a way separate and the whole all at the same time. But it becomes a part of your being. So it's not even where your actions and decisions, the way that you move in a sense, just automatically be intellectually, I'm doing this for everyone. It just happens naturally.
That's exactly what happened with Jesus when we're talking about the experience in the high place when he was pushing through. What was he pushing through? He was overcoming the material dominance or the religious dominance that had been the major guidepost in his life. He had to push through that in order to get to a place where he became who he was created to be. And in doing so, he overrode all those things that you were talking about, Ron. He overrode them for the benefit of humanity. But you have to do it within you first in order to do it for humanity itself. If you really think about it historically, there is I read a book some years ago. It said something when Africans ruled the world. When Africans came in contact with the Mayans, when they left, the Mayans were still there. When Europeans came in contact with the Mayans were gone when they left because they slaughtered them. So what am I saying? I am saying that there has to be a force of spirituality in the earth, embracing the reality that we are created as spiritual beings in order to bring that type of thought that would destroy, that would commit genocide for greedy purposes. Some has to bring that, put that in check. And putting that in check has nothing to do with race. It has everything to do with a concept of greed and superiority that has to be put in check. And the ones who are in this nation, on this earth, to put it in check, is the nation that was born on the waters. Everything that has dominated this earth, when it comes to making every effort to bring equality to people, regardless of their race, has started in this country with us. Now I'm saying that it started because the only thing we saw was the translation of the Bible, the interpretation of the Bible that kept us in bondage, and the belief that this nation was built for the benefit of everyone. Well, we quickly saw that nothing is going to change politically, neither is anything going to change the hearts of men religiously. The only thing that changes the thoughts of humanity is an influx of righteousness that comes with a deep desire to bring balance into the earth, which means that to wake up the souls of humanity for the express purpose of seeing that all of us are human, and differences in skin color has nothing to do with it. The reason that it's so difficult to get beyond that is because racism is so prevalent and is so deeply ingrained not only into those who are the perpetuators of racism, but also is so deeply ingrained into those who are considered to be inferior because of their race. It's so deeply ingrained until we are afraid to speak to the reality that we are not talking about every single white individual, every single African individual. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the concepts that that dominate particular societies. And the concept that dominates the European society is greed. And the concept that dominates European societies is we take what we want, regardless of who we have to kill. And it doesn't matter if we destroy the earth in the process, we are going to make that money. We're going to get what we want. And here we are. The spiritual concept is when you do that, you are destroying humanity as well as the earth consciousness itself. So someone has to stand in the gap. Someone who is spiritual, someone who is the essence, who understand rather the essence of our creation, has to stand in the gap and say, enough is enough. Enough is enough, and whatever it takes for us to bring humanity to a place of harmony. And harmony speaks to the idea of bringing humanity to a place where, yes, my skin color is different than yours, but you do not judge me on the basis of my skin color. You do not treat me differently because of my skin color. That's racism. Humanism is when we make sure that everyone is taken care of. And that is, my God, that is one of the worst things you can say, especially in America, that we want a society where everyone is taken care of, where poverty is eliminated. That is a deadly statement in this country. That's a deadly statement in Western Europe. That's a deadly statement in Eastern Europe if you're talking about anybody other than Europeans. So the Creator has raised up a group of people who are willing to do what it takes in order for us to bring harmony to this earth. So we don't have to have discussions like this anymore, because at that point we will be pointing to the historical changes in the society itself simply based upon the spiritual guides and the spiritual map that Jesus left for us to follow and that other holy men left for us to follow. Thank you.
Good evening, Ron, Pastor. This is Jordan Philly. I just wanted to respond to Matthew 4 when we spoke about Jesus being tempted in the wilderness, and how did Jesus respond to that challenge. Is the same way with us, but Jesus communed with spiritual energy that was moving within his being. And when we talk about the spiritual energies of him just going to that quiet place, being able to just be in communion with the spiritual forces. And I believe that that's where we look at it in terms of talking about melanin, and I want to just tie it in because it really talks about the importance of melanin being a doorway to conscious mind. It talks about it in terms of our melanin is cosmic, and we are like stardust. But when we look at it in terms of the number 666, and I'll just say it in reference to the importance of not only melanin but carbon, we talk about 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. And that's what gives us, our melanin and our carbon. And so I think that when we talk about how did Jesus dealt with temptation, he was able to go to that quiet place. He was able to be in nature. He was able to absorb, the spiritual energies, that, not only he received, but we all can. But at the same time moving in that oneness of loving kindness and balance for harmony, in the universe that we live in. So I just thought that the spiritual energies, is something that we have to commune with. And I just was looking at it both from our self-consciousness and also looking from the cosmic consciousness. I just wanted to share those thoughts to what was being said already. I'm done.
I think, Georgia, I think your question kind of speaks to something, a question that I had. I think one of the problems when we read the scriptures is relating to Jesus and thinking these are things that I can't do. I can't see myself doing that. And looking at the temptations here, it I guess the question I was thinking, and was this a reoccurring thing, or was he able to subdue his mind in one shot like this at one time, or is it's written this way, but doesn't necessarily mean that he did not have these contemplations more than once. And I think we have them more than once, and we see it as a weakness that we can't be like Jesus was. So I listened to George's answer. Maybe it was just once, and maybe that doesn't mean that we can't do that. We just haven't reached that place yet that we can't quite understand how to maneuver the energy, I guess.
Yeah,
Does anybody understand my question? Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I believe I do. And let me just say, I think we've talked about it in the past where Jesus said, these things that I've done, and we heard this before in terms of Pastor mentioning it, these things that I've done, you shall even do greater things. And so it's to believe in Jesus, but it's to be Elohim, it's to be who we are, and we have the power to be able to overcome temptation. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's something that we have to tap into our spiritual energies from a holistic perspective where we can look at it mind, body, soul, and spirit. But just like we look at, the pineal gland, or just like we talk about carbon brings out organic life, as so above, so below. So how do we tap into that? And I think that we all, may be at different levels of our spiritual journey. But as we continue to seek truth, I believe that we're coming more to an awareness that we're able to tap into the universe to overcome maybe some of the temptations or some of the challenges that we have. And again, as I say, it's something that's not easy, but I truly believe we're moving as one in that direction. I don't know if that helps out, Ron, but
yeah,
I'll respond to your question. I'm done.
I think that Jesus did not do it in one shot. Because if he had done it in one shot, he would not have to have gone to the mountain to pray. He would not have to separate himself and refuel and then in the Garden of Gethsemane. That's another example of it not being in one shot. I think that if we look at the teachings or in conjunction with each other, we'll begin to see the human aspects of Jesus that we have been blinded to by having been told all of these years that Jesus was 100% God and 100% man, and no one explaining what that meant. But the more we look at the reality of the writings, we do indeed see that Jesus is a human as we are. I'm done.
Okay.
I have a question. So once Jesus was crucified, did it have to go through physical emotions or have those same inner conversations, or it was he didn't no longer have to go through that?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
He did not, because he had transitioned out of this physical world and coming back into it, he came back into this physical world, being the essence of Elohim, as well as being the essence of humanity. Humanity is also spiritual, y'all. The body is not spiritual, but humanity is a spiritual whole of consciousness in this earth. And when we talk about balancing humanity, we are talking about balancing the consciousness of this earth. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
It does.
wanna-
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to make sure I understood your question. You said after he was, do you mean while he was on the cross or after he died and came back? When you said when he was crucified, I'm trying to just make sure I understand.
Yeah, my question was after he was crucified and had risen or just
Okay.
laid down that garment, physical garment, did he have to go through any type of emotional thing or have that inner dialogue within himself?
Okay, I got you now. Thank you.
And I got something to follow up with that. So, Pastor, we don't have to wait till we transition to be able to not have those thoughts or that inner conversation.
No, we don't. Enoch did. The scripture tells us that when you get to the place where you don't have these struggles that Jesus expressed and that we still also have, when you get to that place, you exit this plane. And what was shown to us through Jesus is that the entrance into this plane at that point, when you reach that point, rather, is just as easy as it is to take a hair out of milk. Yet, at the same time, you're in the midst of the trials, but you are not a part of it. Now, do I think that humanity is going to get to that place where all of us in this earth have the experience that Jesus did when he was resurrected? I doubt it. However, we can bring some semblance of peace and harmony to this earth so that it is not destroyed along with the people who inhabit it. Oh, I'm done.
Good discussion. Questions, anyone?
Ron, I want to say I do have a lot of questions, and we could table it till some other time. But I do have questions, and I can ask my questions Saturday.
Well, let me ask you this: Are you okay? Are you settled with it? What we discussed tonight? Do you have this discussion tonight generate other questions that you need clarity on?
Well, let me just say this, and this is to Pastor and whoever. So when Jesus said, "Greater things we'll be able to do," he wasn't talking about what. Let me just say this: is what we're talking about tonight one of the things that is part of what he said, the greater things. So we'll be able to be in the eye of the storm when there's a storm, even with situations. We'll be able to balance ourselves, or to be able to bring peace to a situation or balance to a situation? That's my question. And I know y'all ready to go, but that's on my heart to ask.
Yes, we will. We are able to do that now. The question is, will we? But we look at how much we've done in terms of exposure. There's no way that the Creator would allow us to bring this much exposure of everything that's going on, knowing that it was going to create a scary time for most people, without not knowing that there are those who's going to stick through this and bring humanity to a place where it is no longer fearful of what it sees with his eyes, but no longer fearful of what it sees with his eyes, but excited about what it sees with his eye. And it does. And again, people will not necessarily, hear me well, people will not necessarily understand or even know what we are talking about. That doesn't matter. What matters is the results. No one could have foretold the effect that it would have on the globe when George Floyd was killed. No one was told, okay, all of us go do this when George Floyd dies. No one was told that. So what I'm saying in essence is, the more we release energy into the universe, or into the Earth's consciousness rather, the more we do that, the closer we are of manifesting the nature of that humans were created to be. I honestly, I see signs all around us about the that points to the manifestation of balance in this earth. I see it all around us. So I hope that helped, Evelyn.
It does. Thank you. And I'm grateful we got the platform to ask questions. I'm done for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
I got one question.
Yes,
question.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Charles.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, how you doing? When Jesus said, if you deny me before my Father, I don't know how it goes, but I know it's in there, and the Father would deny you. Like when you've been in a setting and you can hear, are they talking you down? Are they talking against you? Because, like you say, you play the race card, and if you don't stand to let them know, steal your idea, how did that right there work? You understand what I'm saying? Either one of you?
The denial deals with so many different things. If you deny me before men, I will deny you before my Father. Meaning that if you know the truth and you deny it by not speaking it when you have opportunity to, or when you have opportunity to enlighten people, then you won't have access to that continued understanding of enlightenment. It will be denied you. Look at the number of people who have walked away with a modicum of what we have seen and remain where they are, and now they have not grown in terms of their understandings beyond the understanding that they got. Why? Because what we taught was taken and used in such a way that it exalted them above people who were in quote-unquote traditional churches and were not in a quote-unquote word church. That's the type of denial that is talking about. It's not necessarily saying, oh, Jesus don't exist, I deny him. That's not what you're talking about. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Anyone else? Okay. Well, as we before we pause for the week and go on about our evening, I just want to remind everybody about the and I don't think we're through discussing what it means to rest, that reflection. Because it's not something you're going to be able to regurgitate and think of everything we discuss, but the energy of it, what resonates with you, the rhythm that you feel. I think we're on to something. I think that's extremely important. And so I just want to remind you of that as we pause and go our separate ways for the week. So have a great week. Again, thank you, everyone, questions and your comments, and hope you have a great week and look forward to Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Bye. Good night.
All right.